You have the ring. And I see your Schwartz is as big as mine. Now let's see how well you handle it.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. Back by popular demand is Jesse Blaze Snyder. How you doing, Jesse?
I'm doing great, man. I just got back from the Designer Con this weekend in Anaheim, and I love going to that thing. It just like sort of reinvigorates the artist in me and just excites me and gets my gears going. There was this booth that had little animal skulls with cities growing out of the skull, and I was just like, this is so cool and creative. I want to write a story about this.
Sounds like a video game.
Yeah, right? Just like just living.
Building a coast like a civilization on a celestial head that's out in space.
Yeah. I was very into it. I want to write this, whatever this is.
So we're here to talk more than just the conventions and everything. You've got a few topics you want to talk about, so we're going to get into the first one today. You wanted to talk kind of about the fandom menace and the way that a lot of the people out there that they go out there, and I kind of talk about this on this coming weekend with Doc about it, where sure, there are things out there that, that aren't right or whatever, but if you build something up to be the worst thing of all times every single time, eventually people are going to stop paying attention because you clearly have no perspective, or you can't kind of keep things, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we're living in the land of hyperbole, which is like really just driving me crazy. Like I saw it this past week or past weeks with the Eternals. Eternals really isn't that bad. It does attempt to do a lot of things, but it actually does them pretty well. And meanwhile, people are using this language that denotes that it's like the worst thing of all time.
It's a bomb.
It's a bomb. And once people are sort of like given societal permission, they just run with the thing. And like that's a big bit of it. Like give a person permission to feel a way, and they will just expound on how much they feel that way, and then it becomes like a competition of like who can feel that way the most. And it's just really disingenuous. And it's funny because like this like kind of came from one of your listeners calling me disingenuine, which really hurt my feelings because I kind of pride myself on being genuine. And when I saw those words, I got engaged. And
it's because nobody can be that nice, Jesse.
Yes, I hear that sometimes. I hear that sometimes, but I try to be. And it was funny by the end of the discourse with your listener over like a week or two in like comments, they actually apologized to me about the disingenuine comment, which was really sweet. And I appreciated it because there was a couple times where I was really, just through the lens of social media getting so angry that I was like, I'm going to kill this person. But I kept like calming myself down going, whatever, it's just social media. And like people tend not to mean things as rudely as they sometimes come off. But they were saying that I was being disingenuous by not pointing out this phantom menace, this all these people that they believe exist, and the obvious existence of this racism and this sexism and this discriminating behavior on Twitter. And look, I'm here to tell you guys, just because some asshole comments on something related to comic books or Star Wars or whatever, and they say something ridiculous. Meanwhile, there are people who literally just say ridiculous things because they love to see how people react and squirm.
Online trolls.
He's one of those people. I know Ethan. I've known Ethan for a freaking long time in comics. I've never seen Ethan really demonstrate any actual practical application of racism or sexism or anything in real life. I've seen him in real life. I've interacted with him at comic conventions, I've had long conversations with him about different characters. Like he was interested in working with me for a while because I'm so passionate about comics and he loves comics too. And he's an asshole. He likes to say things that stir people up. He doesn't give a shit if you are sensitive, and he will say whatever it is, and he doesn't care. And he was run out of comics, like mainstream comics, on a handcart because of that, because he's an asshole. He is an asshole. I will tell you that he's an asshole, but is he a racist or a sexist or he really isn't. And anything that he has said in those things, I can tell you as somebody who has dealt with him as a real person, long time prior to him being viewed as the head of Comics Geek, he's just a little bit of a jerk, who's less sensitive to, people's feelings than I am or you are, but he's not actually a racist. So, as people are so much of like this, the racism and the sexism and all these things, like, well, they want to stick him in that group, and he's not really that. And I know that because of personal experience. And then you're going to look at a bunch of these anonymous people, a bunch of these faceless fans. I don't know that they are fans. In my experience, and I've worked at comic book stores for most of my life, comic book stores and toy stores, and my favorite people are comic book people, or people who make comic books and draw them and buy them, and I've been drawn to this community because I am a good guy and a nice guy, and I like to hang out with other good guys and other nice guys and people who don't have egos and people who are in life to win it, and I mean that, like, we're in this together. The left wing and the right wing belong to the same bird. We can't chop off the other wing and expect to still fly. The only way we're going to fly is when we're harmoniously moving together. The last time I was on the show, I said Superman and Captain America, they're saving the world. They're not saving just America. The planet is in peril all the time. And I have never seen a single panel conversation where they go, well, I don't know about China. Russia doesn't really deserve to be saved. Like, this shit does not occur. The planet is in peril, and they save the day. And people like you and I who are reading these books, I can't help but believe that on some level it comes from an idea that, wouldn't it be nice if we could save everybody all at once? Wouldn't it be nice if there was something to mitigate these circumstances so that it wasn't us versus them anymore, and that we were, together, and that life was heading in the right direction? And, when people trump up this illusory idea of all these racists and all these sexists and all these people, really, I think we're doing a terrible thing. And I'll tell you what it is. It's we're empowering the few people who are that. The few awful comic fans and Star Wars fans who are racist and are sexist, we're making them think that they have more backing than they really do. We're turning a molehill into a mountain, and for the outside looking in, we're making it seem like that position has support. And that, to me, is the worst thing that you could do, is make those people feel like there are more. Like, that was like the unfortunate thing about, Donald Trump. I'm a real centrist, but, when it came down to, left-leaning people going like, Donald Trump is making it appear like there is more support for these things than there are. That was a little hard to deny on some levels, whether you say because he's bad at talking and wasn't rebutting himself fast enough. I know there's a lot of different opinions on it, but at the end of the day, there was a little bit of this sort of seeming empowerment of this group that we don't want to empower. That's what we don't want to do. So don't pretend that this group, this fringe group, is big and strong and powerful. They're not. We're big, we're strong, we're powerful, and we think that those ideas are stupid and passé and everything that has been tearing the world apart for ages. Don't give them a platform that's bigger than it actually is. Don't trump them up. That's
here's the thing, Jesse, that the conundrum that we're in nowadays. Everybody I know, like, I don't really know any of my friends who are like, yeah, I really like racism. Or, I think sexism is a really good thing. I think women should be held down and all these kind of things. The problem is you could go out there and you could make a statement, and it has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with the gender identity or any of the sexuality of the statement. Like, none of that is there's nothing within the statement, but it will be twisted and turned so they can vilify me or you or somebody else out there and act like, I'm some type of racist, when that's clearly not what the statement was about at all. And then anyone that's associated with me, they must be racist as well. And you get this domino cascading effect where everyone gets painted with this broad brush of some of the worst things that you can call somebody.
Yeah. Well, it was like 20 years ago when I was coming up, like in high school. And, I was a bit of a social justice warrior, but that's because there was none. People weren't talking about these things. So I was pretty vocal, about things for a time. As the tide shifted and everybody started getting more vocal, and I started to see it as a lot more sort of virtue signaling. But there was this moment where not enough people were saying anything. And so comedy started to point at it in a lot of ways. And they would be like, you see that thing that you said there? You see that little thing that you did there? You don't realize you're not a racist, you're not a sexist, but what you did and what you said there plays to sexism and plays to racism. And there was truth to that. And it was lovely that some of these things were being pointed out because it started to help to inform the overall idea of how people were living their lives and how people were thinking. And people who were more forward, thinking, forward minded and were interested in things like social justice, they did start to rearrange their minds a little bit to be less and less that. But then somewhere along the way, as that power shifted, we started using that, hey, you're doing something in a misguided way. It represents a tinge of sexism or a tinge of racism. Like, it's not a Hugh man, it's a Hugh person. To use a word and say, hey, guys, me and my girlfriend, we were watching fucking Survivor the other day, and they got into a 5-minute damn conversation about whether or not it was okay to use the term guys to describe everybody. This is a misfire. This is just like talking about like you were aiming for the racists and you just started shooting normal people in the face for no reason because they said guys. Like, I'm sorry, we've all been raised in this patriarchy, where there's a lot of terminology and shit. And half this shit comes from freaking really religious driven people and religious ideas. And we're getting away from that in so many ways. And now we're like shooting the messengers who are saying some of the things in the ways that we've been saying them for a long time. It's to get this frustrated, this upset, and start calling sexism and racism to just normal people who are just using their normal language that they were taught. That's the slippery slope that we've been on. And this is this place where like everybody gets to be a racist and everybody gets to be sexist because they're participating in the old language system that we have. And it's silly.
It's weird because, everyone's become a psychologist now that we don't talk to each other and we don't look each other in the eye when we communicate. So we were just projecting, like, I know exactly where you're coming from. I don't know where you live. I don't know your life experience. I don't know who your parents are, who your best friends are, but I know exactly why you said that, what you really meant. So everyone's trying to like dive into these things. And I got an example to what you were just talking about there. When I just retired from the military, I was going back to stay with my brother and his wife for a few weeks before I moved out here to be with my wife and son. And I went down to Hot Topic because I wanted a T-shirt that was, I think it was the Cody Rhodes American Nightmare shirt. It was before he became lame on AEW. Oh, nice. And I go in there and I pick up the shirt. I'm in the military for 20 years. And, it's ingrained in me when you see a male, you say sir. You see a female, you say man.
Female theme is been ingrained in you?
So I go up there to buy my shirt, and the clerk has a shorter, like pixie style haircut, but it's clearly a female from what I could see. I'm not a jerk. If I know whatever you want to be called, I'll call you that. But my default is to use the terms that I've been told. So I go up there, and the clerk says, "How was your trip in the store? Did you find everything all right?" And I said, "I sure did, ma'am." "How dare you? Are you assuming that I'm a female?" I was like, "What are you talking about? How dare you assume my gender identity?" I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm seeing your body. I know that you're female. You have a haircut. I've seen that on women. You're not presenting yourself as a male. There's not a sign on your shirt that says I prefer to be called him or they or whatever. So yes, I defaulted to my standard language that I've been using for 40 years. and then you're going to vilify me instead of rather just saying, you know what, I would prefer it if you said this. Hey, I don't care about that stuff. I know it bothers other people.
You said this. Why can't you say that? Why can't that be said? Hey, I'll respect. I would prefer it if you said this.
Yeah, because
and who responds badly to that?
There are jerks out there that would, but I'm not like that. I really don't care. It bothers some people, but there's no benefit of a doubt. You have to jump to the worst conclusion.
Out there that would take offense to that, they're smaller. They're smaller than we imagine. And like, seriously, if you're going to vilify anybody for one little thing that they said, you know, and have that be representative of the whole, like, and then you get into something like Twitter where people are literally using it as like a fucking cave to shout in, you know, it's like, fuck this thing, you know, like, and then we're going to take the guy who's come to Twitter to shout into the cave, fuck this thing. And then we're going to be like, look, this is representative of all the people on the planet who are bastards. Is it? Is it really? Are we really playing this stupid game? How stupid are we?
Well, yeah, you're talking about making mountains out of molehills. I used a standard term that has been used in social communication forever in America. I was not trying to be rude to anybody. Yet you're going to, jump to the worst possible conclusion that I knew what I was doing and I was trying to misgender somebody because apparently, I'm evil. It's like, but that's where we are nowadays. Everyone has to be the most offended person, most aggrieved person in the history of the world. And that's why we're kind of where we're at, where you can't have an opinion on a comic book without being a racist. You can't have an opinion on a comic book without hating the person that wrote the book.
It's so silly. And, and worse than that, it's a whole bunch of weakness. And I say this, and it's just true. I am the type of person who people don't fuck with. And I don't know what it is. I think it's because I'm pretty balanced in my masculine and my feminine. And I kind of swap back and forth between being very like la 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 and being very what? Like don't you disrespect me. And I watched
dad voice.
Yeah, I watched it in my band. Like I had a band called Baptized by Fire, and we would go. I remember like walking into the club and like, everybody like in a parade walking in equipment. We all had equipment in our hand, and this sound guy, he zeroed in on my bass player, and my bass player was very self-destructive. He was about a half a foot taller than me, really meaty kind of guy, and yet people would key on him to sort of give him shit and like say things to him, and I should have run into this problem by now. I have innocently said, oh, sorry, ma'am, something like that. Like, like I call people sir, I always I'm trying to be respectful to people, but exactly. I never have. I've literally never had one of these people call me out on anything like that. And what does that say to me? It says to me that they're only doing it when they feel like they're in the power position and they won't actually bring their scruples to just anybody. They're going, I think that I can say this to this person. And I think that's bullshit. Either you believe what you believe and you say it to everybody and you freaking go out there and you stand up for yourself equally, or you don't. And people don't do that to me. I'm in these circles all the time, and I'm sure because I don't censor myself like that. I'm very, very innocent in how I behave. And I just sort of innocently go out and I say what I say. And I'm somebody that believes that like, if you don't lie, you never have to remember anything, like if you're just always like honestly coming at everything the same way, like then I don't have to remember anything and I can just go out into the world. And I know that I'm always leaving behind like a better world than I found it, and hope. And if anybody ever does call me out on something, I'm always like, oh, well, I'm sorry. Like I didn't mean that, but nobody does. People would start fights with me on my football team, but nobody ever actually would swing a punch at me, and this idea of like, oh, we're going to bitch around anonymously on Twitter. You guys are being little bitches. Seriously, this is like you want to be strong-minded and strong-willed. Well, do it consistently and do it in a better fashion. Like it's just like to pick and choose who you want to call out on this stuff. It's just nonsense. And then somebody else comes in and you're like, well, not this person. Like I think that I can get away with saying this to them. And like, it's just, there's such an inconsistency across the board. It's so easy to pop holes in the narrative and what's going on, and the fact that more people don't use their big brains in order to do so themselves and to dissolve it themselves and to like all of the smart people in comics should have by now went, Ethan Van Sciver is not an actual racist. He's just an asshole. We should be smart enough to figure this out. Like, I shouldn't have to say that this is the thing. And I spent time with them, and like, I've seen he's not practically that thing. But meanwhile, nobody wants to defend him because the temperature of the room of all the anonymous people who are hiding behind their computer going,
yeah. Well, you got to have the boogeyman to blame on all this stuff that's happening. And there's also the point that, you have control over yourself. If somebody goes out there and they troll you, it's on you to either respond or not respond, on how you respond. If you allow people to get you worked up and lose your mind, and make a bigger deal out of things, and, you're being controlled yourself.
It's a really good example for myself. Learning, like I said, I was being called in the comments.
Yeah, the commenter, yeah,
genuine, and that the illusory nature of like a comment on Facebook or whatever. It's not, things aren't said with the energy and love or care that maybe they were meant. You can't see their facial expression. You don't see their eyes. You're not linking up with them as human beings. You're just reading stark words. And literally multiple times I was taking offense. And it really was a lesson to me, and I've learned this lesson before, when they apologized at the end of it and literally went out of their way to point to the thing that was making me the most upset, that I was being called disingenuous. That was really upsetting me. And the last thing they said, and by the way, I've thought multiple times in my life, in this week, that we've been talking about using the word disingenuous, and that it was really wrong because it had a connotation to it that you were not coming from a place of speaking as much truth as you could imagine or whatever, and I figured exactly what he said. But literally the thing that was hurting my feelings the most and making me feel the most misunderstood, he was thinking about in his own life. And I couldn't know that. And isn't that so wonderful to know that I didn't allow myself to get angry, and the few, well, I did here or there, but the few times where I was like going to comment in like an angry way, I went, don't do that. Don't go there. Don't allow yourself to get angry about this thing, only to find out that this person was really having like a little minor crisis of conscience where they were like, that wasn't really cool. I had a difference of opinion from Jesse, but watching Jesse in the video, I realized that he really did believe everything that he believed, and he was saying it the way he saw it, just as honestly as he could. And by saying it that way, I was making it out to be something it wasn't. And I wish I hadn't done that. Like, you don't know if somebody's having a bad moment and they had some stupid comment on Twitter and now they're defensive because you go and you comment their comment and they're like, I didn't know anybody was seeing that. I'm not a racist. You're a jerk. Like, and what the hell? Like, how can we adjust for these things in any other way than just trying to assume the best? And that lady, instead of going, don't you assume my gender, say, I'd prefer it if you could call me whatever it might be. That's the way. Hey, it'd be nice if you didn't call me disingenuous. That hurt my feelings. Like, I mean, like, maybe that's even the better thing. It's like I should have commented, hey, that really hurts my feelings that you said that like that. And you know what? It's kind of like bad on me that I didn't just say, hey, this hurt me in this way. And give him the opportunity right then and there to say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I'm just like commenting like a jerk, and I didn't know that you were going to be somebody who was nice enough to comment back. And, I appreciate you're like, because it might have been resolved just like that. But instead, I
definitely learned that in YouTube. You got to take the commenters with a grain of salt. You can't read sarcasm. You can't all the time read that there's humor involved or whatever place they're coming from. So I used to get very upset and take a lot of things very personally, and I've kind of had to let that go.
Making music, being in the public eye, like I have seen time and time again, there have been people who have gone at me for no reason. And when I've been kind and come back, like they're some of my biggest fans to this day, because they were like, I got upset and Jesse didn't demonize me. He was like, all right, and he entertained what I had to say and treated me like I was a human being. Like that's the thing. Like, it's like we're dehumanizing each other. Like, to label somebody, to just go, you're a racist, you're a sexist. Like, we don't realize how dehumanizing it is. I mean, really, like, it's like I've pretty much never been called a white guy by anybody. But the other day, I really literally nobody, but my sister, you know, we just kind of got into like a momentary little argument, and she called me a white guy. And I got so upset that she would marginalize me down to that. And, you know, and I'm somebody who, like, I don't give two shits what you are, where you come from. If you will honor my experience, I will honor your experience. If you don't honor my experience, I will try to honor your experience. And, you know, marginalizing people, shrinking them down to just some little label, it's the worst thing that we could do to anyone.
I definitely agree with you. I do want to say thank you very much to Jesse for joining me today. We're going to be talking about a few more subjects over the next few days here on the channel.
I'm excited.